Welcome everybody to Ready Set Cloud, our session on assessing your application landscape for cloud readiness, risk, and value. My name is Max Kober and I'm partner manager at Txture, and I will quickly guide you through this session. The agenda for today is we're going to start with a short intro about what Txture is, what Txture does, about typical challenges in a situation in cloud assessments. Then we'll go over a fictitious project time and discuss some potential challenges that might arise. And last but not least, we're going to talk about the values and benefits of Txture, do a short wrap-up, and last but not least, do the Q&A session I promised you before. Okay, I already introduced myself. Again, my name is Max. I'm partner manager here at Txture. We are a company based in Innsbruck, focusing on the topic of cloud transformation. This means our focus topics are the assessment, the target architecture, and the migration governance in cloud transformations. We also recently started focusing on the continuous modernization topics, as this has been arising when companies that already moved to the cloud finally get the idea that they also might want to modernize what they do have in the cloud or modernize other parts of their IT landscape and leverage the cloud for that. We're also focused on all major cloud providers for our target architecture proposals. So don't worry, I think we get it all covered from all the major ones like Google, Microsoft Azure, and AWS, also to maybe some more niche players like Alibaba Cloud, Oracle Cloud, Tencent Cloud, and etc. With our projects, we have a global reach. We've done, over the past 2.5 years, we've done more than 100 cloud transformations projects where Txture has been an integral part of the projects all across the globe. So really, I think in almost every country that has something to do with it, we were present with our partners. Speaking of partners, we are very partner focused. This means we support our partners in sales. We have business models around our partners, particularly concerning licensing, reselling, and co-selling. And we're also there to help enable our partners and people working in the projects for our partners through training programs and certifications. Now that we've got that covered, I want to talk to you about challenges we see in assessment projects. What we typically see is, particularly when you begin in an assessment project, it's hard to get the prioritization right, where to put the focus. This is often a topic for clients that they want maybe some easy wins in the beginning and want sort of a roadmap to get the easy wins first and then focus on the more hard and arduous tasks. Also, a very common issue, I would say, is in finding the right cloud strategy for applications. This means, okay, should I maybe simply host what, or can I gain more if I re-architect the whole thing? Or maybe there's a cloud product that exists already, a simple SaaS product that can be leveraged here, and I can introduce that into my cloud strategy. Another topic would be that you're lacking overview in these projects. So what kind of data has to be assessed? What kind of applications do I have? We really saw this very often, that clients have a rough idea about what their IT landscape looks like, but they don't know really what's going on or how all the applications and the underlying IT stack is interconnected. Another topic would be the lack of transparency in decision making. So if a decision was made on an application on what to do with it, whether to rehost it, replatform it, retire it, or maybe even retain it, how did that decision come to life? This is also something where Txture could help. And last but not least, there's also often the topic that there's no application-specific insights on risk, benefit, or readiness. This is also something we'd like to address with you. So to set the screen for when we're going to jump into the demo shortly, we'll just assume that we'll have a financial services provider as customer with around 600 applications. This is in line with what my colleague Lucas has been already discussing in the webinar session about discovery with Txture. And we will be comparing different scenarios between AWS, Google Cloud, and Microsoft Azure. Also, if you haven't seen it yet, the session my colleague Lucas held on the discovery with Txture is available online on our YouTube channel. So In case you have any open questions there, make sure to check it out to help you on this path. The situation for us now in terms of the assessment will be, okay, well, there's a landscape that needs to be assessed, but the client doesn't know what exactly it consists of. So there's no overview. But you already have collected data with Txture. Now you need to organize it. And also the client has tasked you with prioritizing a certain fraction of the apps and forego some others so you can get going. Basically coming up with a roadmap and coming up with maybe applications that are particularly easy to migrate and so on. All right, so I will be switching over to the Txture demo now. Perfect. So here we are in the Txture demo environment. Typically, this is where we would start in the dashboard. But hence, since our focus today is the transformation cockpit, we're going to put our focus there. So if you go to the transformation cockpit and to the assessment phase of things, you will land at this screen here. This basically will give you a rough overview of what's happening in this phase in Txture. First of all, we're going to see the scatter plot where it matches the applications we do have in scope right now between their cloud benefit and their cloud readiness. Means actually the applications that would be on the right top, they would be the ideal combination of high cloud benefit and high cloud readiness. This means easy targets that bring a lot of benefit. We can also do more of a breakdown further down here, where you can see, okay, applications by timing. When would the calculated timing be from Txture for these applications to migrate them? How cloud ready are they? We can divide that up. How risky is it to migrate those applications? Risk stems from business criticality, dependency on other applications, and so on. So these are all factors to consider. Also, applications by cloud benefit. Okay, so let's jump into an example. Today we're gonna look at the EPM Analytics app, for example, where we'll get this screen if we look into it. It will say, in this case, okay, the assessment is complete. Txture would suggest a replatform to AWS because this was part of my target architecture preferences. And now Txture will give you an exact breakdown of, okay, why did it come to this assessment? First of all, there's a data completeness that's relatively high, scored with 82 out of 100 points. This means on the relevant rules, which I'll be talking to you about shortly, we have a good set of data that we can work with. The cloud readiness for said rules is also very high, and also a high cloud benefit with a low migration risk. So, as we can see, probably an ideal migration candidate. We can also see, okay, there was a calculated strategy from Txture that's replatform in the short to medium term. It can be changed manually, but just make sure you know what you're doing there. And then down here, there's a comment section. This means Txture is perfectly capable of being a central communication hub for your cloud transformation. So for example, you could write here, like we did already, migrate from AWS to Azure, but you can also write a more specific reasoning for that, or why you did a certain override, or also tag other people to let them you're working on this application. I've talked about rules before, so I briefly want to jump into it with you with that. So basically, the assessments Txture does, they are not some kind of magic, but they are more based on logic. This means we have a set of rules. I think it's around between 80 and 90 rules right now. They are divided into different pillars, I would say, or topics. One is the application complexity, technical configuration, the business perspective, and the data risk. If we jump in there, we get all these rules, and we can see here on this little tick box if they're active or not. Rules then would always explain themselves. For example, what kind of data they consider. For example, the application modification considers whether an application is currently under development on the asset of an application. And the outcomes will be the cloud benefit. And it's also explained why. Let's say we have the field application development and an application is currently under development. So the cloud benefit will be high as it's easier to migrate and immediately adapt to the cloud. if there's no ongoing development with an application, there's probably no cloud benefit. Following this logic, we have all these rules. I mean, they're probably different which kind of rules you're going to use from project to project, but they're all very well explained and documented in the Txture app. And they've also been based on a lot of feedback we've been getting from the industry and a lot of projects. So we're really very confident that this can cover wide areas. These rules then define, of course, which kind of data you need, because for this rule to make any calculation, you need the data of application development on an application. So because we often get this question, okay, what is the minimum amount of data I need for Txture to work? This is the answer. It depends on how many rules and which rules you have active. This is also why we would typically advise you to start with a small set of rules, or at least have an overview of it and start not too complex and then work from there. Otherwise, it will result in a lot of complexity right from the beginning, sort of as a tip for best practice. Since we now know what the rules are and how they work, I think this might make more sense where this data comes from. And down here, we have an exact breakdown of all the active rules. They're again divided into those 4 pillars I mentioned earlier around application complexity, technical configuration, business perspective, and data risk. And we can see, for example, here, okay, the rule around application modification has all the required data, so it could calculate a result. Whereas for other rules, maybe like this one, confidential information is stored, there's data missing. So Txture is not very confident in what you calculated there, and would advise you to look into that data and work on it, and maybe even take it back to the client to make sure you can get a better data completeness there. Again, this should just help clarify the whole situation and bring more transparency into what is happening there. So there's no black box or some magic happening, but it's all a logic with a calculation that can be transparently followed up on. Once we have factored that everything in, we will get the combination of these results down here, up here, and thus it will show you what it's going to do with an application. These results can be used to navigate through an assessment and to also show a client why you would prioritize certain applications over others. Because, for example, some applications are more cloud ready than others, and they also bring a higher cloud benefit. So ideally, I would start with those, bringing us back to the overview screen, where this is typically in a project what we would work with, versus these here are not the low-hanging fruit. These are really the complex parts of a migration that will happen towards the end of it. We do think that this is really a particularly useful case of Txture, but we can also look at other parts. We can also correlate the risk and the benefit, or the risk with the readiness. So you can have a look at this issue from different perspectives and also tackle it from different perspectives. If we look maybe at another application, for an example, at maybe the 𝗀𝗃 system, where it says, okay, data completeness is not so high, cloud readiness also not, also the cloud benefit is low, and the migration risk is relatively high. So this would then also affect the timing Txture would propose. It would not propose to migrate this application in the short term, but rather the medium term, and to platform it. And again, I have the exact breakdown of what's going on there. This also shows here that the current target architecture preferences are different from the recommendations. This, however, will be the topic of our next session, which will be in 2 weeks from now. My colleague Stefan will be hosting that, where we have a deeper look at the target architecture. Last but not least, in 4 weeks' time, we're going to have a session on road mapping. So we will see all architecture that we have in our transformation cockpit. Okay, so I'll jump back to the slides. Bear with me for a second. So wrapping up, what you can expect in terms of value and benefits from Txture is that we help you do a fast and automated 6-hour assessment. So it makes it easier when you use Texture to decide between, okay, do I want to retire, retain, rehost, replatform, refactor an application, and why? Also, Texture provides you with the possibility to dive into the topic of cloud readiness, cloud benefit, and migration risk of an application, making it easier to make a roadmap on which applications should be looked into it, because they are sort of the low-hanging fruits that can be tackled versus applications that might be a more complex task and maybe should be migrated at a later point of time. Also, we pride ourselves in the quantitative rule-based assessment of applications to assist in decision-making. So it's not something that is based purely on a gut feeling, but it can be transparently followed up in the Texture platform, why a certain decision was made. Last but not least, I again want to give a hint around the central dashboards that we have for reporting on the progress of the assessment, and also the dashboards that help you show an overview of the assessment, what's currently going on. So this makes it also easier to show a client your progress you currently have and what you're currently working on. This has really been proven to be very helpful and really appreciated in the projects we have accompanied with our partners. All right, so this pretty much concludes our espresso session on assessments in Texture. If you watch this session at a later point in time and have any questions, please do reach out to me. Write me on LinkedIn, write me an email, get in touch with Texture. Just, do whatever suits you best. You can see my contact details here on this slide. Also, if you need more info generally on Texture, on cloud transformations, on current topics around cloud transformations, I would really advise you to go visit our website, visit our blog, as we have numerous of helpful postings there that explain the ins and outs of cloud transformation, cloud knowledge, cloud trends, give you also product info about Texture, give you current news around the world of cloud, and is really a helpful hub for you to get started. Thank you again, everyone, for your attention, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.